Yes.
Are we allowed to open Bhagavad Gita and have a look?
We have already opened it from
Mm.
last to 1.5 years.
So yeah, I'll go for this probably, Prabhuji. So 2.11 is Ashocha Anvashocha Stam Pratya Vadansh Bhasase Gatasuna Gatasuncha Nanu Shochanti Pandita.
Yes.
Um, and this is the Sanskrit version of it. So
Yeah.
basically, Lord Krishna is trying to say that in this verse, oh dear Arjun, you are basically mourning for something which is not worthy of mourning or lamenting for it. And how has this delusion come to a learned person like you?
So what is the instruction?
Start thinking like an Arya.
Don't lament for either living or dead.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is the instruction. Do not lament. And what is lamentation?
Constant grief.
Constant grief. So something you have a bad experience about, you grieve about that. Someone is dead, someone is ill, someone is not there in your life. You haven't received something in your life you worked for, etc., etc. You grieve about it, you think about it. But when you constantly contemplate about it over and over for a long period of time, that is called lamentation. So the first instruction of Krishna to Arjuna is do not lament. Grieving is okay. Yes, I may kill my relatives, but it's my dharma to fight. I'm a Kshatriya. So if I have to fight, I may have to do some collateral damage, but I have to fight. So grieve, that's okay, but do not lament. Do not contemplate constantly that what will happen if they are all killed. That's what he's trying to tell him. So do not lament. A person who is intelligent, so he says, Ashocha anvashochastum pragya vadamscha bhashase gatasun agatasuncha nanu shochanti panditaha. So the one who is pandita, who is, so pandit doesn't mean the one who has a choti or a janev or he's chanting shlokas. That's not pandit. Pandit is someone who has intelligence and he uses it, okay, to its best. That is pandita. A pandit is someone who's very intelligent, who's applying his intelligence. He's pandit. Okay, so pandit is not equal to brahman. Okay, so there are different, the words have different meanings. Pandit is someone who's intelligent. So the one who is intelligent, the one who is very intelligent, he does not lament on gatasun agatasun, someone who has the life air or someone who does not have the life air, someone who has a prana vayu or someone doesn't have a prana. Any one of those, he doesn't lament. So what is he telling? Basically, do not lament on the body. So that is the first instruction. You are lamenting on the body. Okay. What did he say? What was his second instruction? Yes, anyone?
Soul is eternal and individual.
Wonderful. So 2.12, second instruction. Tatvevaham jatu nasam, tatvam neme janadipaha, nachaiva na bhavishyama, sarve vayamatah param. That is, neither there was a time when I was not there, neither there was a time when you were not there, neither there was a time when these kings were not there, who was just around us. Bear in mind, they are standing in the middle of the battlefield, where there is armies from both parties ready to fight Pandavas and Kauravas. So he's saying that all these kings who are there was never a time when they did not exist, which means that they were always there. They are eternal. And who are they? They is referred to the souls, the Atma, the people, not the bodies which are around surrounding them. The soul inside those bodies was always there, which means they are individuals. All these people, me, Krishna, Arjun, these kings, they are all different entities and they always existed. Now, question, what is the relation between 11 and 12? 2.11 and 2.12. First instruction and the second instruction. What is the relation between them? There's always a link, right? When someone gives instructions and talks. If someone talks one statement, the second statement without being linked to the first, it doesn't make sense, right? And Krishna is speaking first statement, instruction, and second instruction. So there has to be a link.
So Krishna is talking about soul.
Okay. So what was his first instruction?
Do not lament, neither for the living nor for the dead.
That means do not lament for neither for the soul, neither for the body. So what is living and what is dead?
Living is the soul, and dead is the
Correct.
material body.
Exactly. Isn't that very logical? Does it convince you, everyone? Does this convince you? Yeah. So a dead
Yes,
body.
Prabhu, because soul will always exist. So it doesn't matter if the body has died. Like Arjuna, Krishna, and all those kings, they've always existed. So it's like it's not worthy of lamenting for something which is always existing. It's eternal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So the
something like
living is the soul and the dead is the body. Very simple understanding. The reason we are living in this world is because there is an energy inside us. If that goes away, that soul goes away, we are dead. And that is called a dead body. That's why it is addressed as dead body. Yes. So the body is dead. Something is gone out of the body, and that is soul. So these two verses are just making, and this is the first step of spirituality, to understand soul and the body. If you are not convinced about these aspects, you have any ambiguity in this aspect, please do not move forward in spirituality. Stay there until you are convinced that I am the soul and this body is a dead body. It's just a matter of time. So I am not this body, I am the soul. If you are not convinced with that, do not go forward in spirituality. It will be a waste of time. Trust me. If you're convinced, then we read further. Does it convince you, all of you?
I'm convinced.
yes, Prabhu.
200%.
Good. So if that is, the feeling inside, yes, this is what it is, and you are able to contemplate on that, then the verse 13 and verse 14 will be making sense to you. And you'll be able to grasp them, be able to apply them. Okay. So what is verse 13?
Soul is transferring from one body to another.
Wonderful. So dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhirastatra na muhyati. So what does that mean? That dehino means yatha dehe. There are two things, dehi and the deha. Dehi is the soul. Deha is the body. Okay. So dehi is the resident of the body. Okay. But it's not the ownership. It is a tendency, because it is simple to understand that the tenant eventually leaves the tenancy, leaves this rented unit or house and goes away. It's a matter of time. Yes. So to identify as yourself as a body will be not very intelligent. Yes. So 2.13 says that the soul goes from one body to the other. From one body. So when a child is born, you can, some of the babies, you can actually, you can fit them in a palm, but that same baby grows to a big man. So what's happening? The soul is actually transmigrating from small body to the big body. And as per science, every 7 years, all your cells in the body are replaced with new cells. That means in 7 years, you have a completely new body. You are not the same person. Well, if you don't look at the mirror, you may not realize, but someone who looks at you after 7 years will definitely tell you, you're not the same person, man. You have changed a lot. You may not feel it. And that determines that you are not this body. Another aspect. Because there is something which is not changing, and that is you. But there is something which is changing, which is the body. And you don't realize it's someone else because he didn't see your body for a while. Does it make sense? Logical? So the body keeps changing. That is 2.13. So when the body is changing throughout the life, from Kaumaram, Yauvanam, Jara. Kaumaram is boyhood, Yauvanam is youth, Jara means old age. So if the body is transmigrating from boyhood to youth to old age, and then it transmigrates from old age to baby. So if you are not worried, or if you are not feeling bad or lamenting when someone grows from a boy to a youth to an old person, why are you lamenting for someone who is changing his body from old age to a baby again? Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. So that transmigration of soul keeps on happening. That's what Krishna says. Tatha dehantara praptir dhirastatra namuhyati. So a sober person, dhira means, dhira purush means sober person. Sober person doesn't get bewildered by this. When he sees someone dying, it is just the transmigration of the soul. No one should get bewildered by it. That is the third instruction. Do not get bewildered by the transmigration of the soul. First instruction, do not lament on the soul, neither the body. Second, we are all the souls, eternal souls. We always existed and we are individuals. Second instruction. Third instruction, the soul is actually transmigrating from body to body to body to body. Do not worry about that. Do not lose your soberness in that. Do not get bewildered in that. Third instruction. Okay. Now, if you understand these three verses, the 14th verse, 2.14, is the verse, if contemplated properly, if meditated properly, one can actually go on the path of self-realization. It is such a powerful verse. So we'll discuss that a bit more and try to analyze it because it's Sankhya Yoga. So we'll read from Srimad Bhagavad Gita 2.14 again. Please repeat the mantras after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Devaya.
Om
Om
Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Devaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om
Om
Vasudevaya.
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Devaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Namo
Om Namo
Bhagavate
Devaya.
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Devaya.
Okay,
Thank
let's
you.
read 2.14. Has everyone got the link, the
Uh,
books?
Vasant, I have just shared link with you on your WhatsApp.
Yep. I've just got it.
So I'm not sharing my screen for the verses, but I'm presuming everyone has the link or the books with you, so you can open them. And I'll read from another book here of mine, Bhagavad Gita. So once everyone is ready, I will start. Everyone okay for me to start
Yeah,
reading for
yeah.
2.14? So please repeat after me this verse again. Matra sparshastu kaunteya
Matras
Matra
Parsha
Matra
Sparshastu
Sparsham
Kaunteya.
Kaunteya.
शीतोष्ण सुख दुःखदाः
Shito
Shitoshna
Shitoshna
Sukhadukkhada.
आगमापायिनो नित्यास्
Agamapaino
Agamapayinos
Nityam.
तां स्थितिक्षस्व भारत.
Tam
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 Stitikshasva
Sthiti
Sthiti
Bharata.
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 Matra sparsha, sensory perception. Two, only. I'm reading the translation. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Sheeta, winter. Ushna, summer. Sukha, happiness. Dukha, and pain. Dah, giving. Agama, appearing. Apayinaha, disappearing. Anityah, non-permanent. Tan, all of them. Titikshasva, just try to tolerate. Bharata, O descendant of the Bharat dynasty. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O sign of Bharat, O sign of Bharat, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take bath early in the morning, even during the month of Magh, January, February, as per Asia. It is very cold at that time, but in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principles does not hesitate to take his bath. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June, the hottest part of the summer season. One has to execute his duty in spite of climatic inconveniences. Similarly, to fight is the religious principle of the Kshatriyas, And although one has to fight with some friend or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge. Because by knowledge and devotion, only one can liberate himself from the clutches of Maya, illusion. The two different names of address given to Arjun are also significant. To address him as Kaunteya signifies his blood relations from his mother's side, Kunti, and to address him as Bharata signifies his greatness from his father's side, that is, his forefathers lining up to Bharat Maharaj. From both sides, he is supposed to have a great heritage. A great heritage brings responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties. Therefore, he cannot avoid fighting. So, this verse is speaking about tolerance, titikshasva, tolerance. The tolerance of non permanent appearance of happiness and distress. So, we discussed this last time, that what are these happiness or distress? What are these? These are experiences. And what are these experiences? What are the objects involved in these experiences?
Sense perceptions they are. So the
Mhm,
senses are involved and the mind
mhm,
is involved.
mhm. Senses are involved and the mind is
Mind
involved, and the sense objects are
Sense
and the
involved.
sense
object.
objects. Yes.
So when a sense comes in contact with a sense object, it experiences something. And the expectation for a person is always pleasure. Whenever a person is in contact, his senses are in contact with sense objects, the expectation is pleasure. But when he does not receive pleasure, that's when there is disturbance, there is distress, because that experience is not pleasant. Correct? Now we discussed a bit about expectations. That expectations, did we discuss expectations leads to frustrations? Did we discuss this last time?
No,
I don't
I
think
don't.
No?
so.
Okay. All right.
Mm,
Okay. So frustration is nothing but distress. Okay. It's a sort of unpleasant experience. That is frustration. So expectation, the larger the expectation, the more is the frustration. So if you look at people in this world, there's a division between the types of people. So we put them as one category is optimizers, and the other category is maximizers. So I'll give you some symptoms of these people. You'll be able to identify them in your mind. Optimizers are someone who take the opportunity to utilize anything in their which comes in contact with them, or they try to find something for themselves, try to utilize them to the best of their ability. Whereas maximizers, they want the ultimate pleasure, ultimate experience, the topmost value out of everything. I'll give you an example. Say for someone wants to buy a mobile phone. Okay. So if someone takes, you know, a month's leave from his office, yeah, to analyze the whole market and then finalize a phone. That would be a typical maximizer. But if there is someone who says, okay, I want to buy a phone, maybe I'll give it a week's time or maybe a week and a half, and every day I'll just research for half an hour. And at that point, after a week or a week and a half, whatever is best available and fits my budget, fits all the checklist, and little bit here and there, I will take it. So time as well as aspects, adjustment, and bit of compromise, but trying to optimize the best possible availability. And he takes the phone. Whereas the maximizer, he keeps on researching, and at the end, he finds something, somehow he manages, negotiates this, that, gets the best deal, and brings the phone. Now, what happens in this is this, that the expectations, they are very high for maximizers. Because when someone researches so much and spends so much time and efforts, and try to get something, and it is not up to the mark, say for example, after a few days, that phone doesn't perform that well as was expected. So the remorse, the buyer's remorse, as we call it, is very high for the maximizers. The pain felt is very high. Whereas the optimizers, they know that, maybe a little bit here and there, I did know that I may not get the best. I had time limitations, I had this, and I got this out from this. No problem, but there may be some workaround around it, and they move on with it. So who's happy? Optimizers or maximizers? Who's a happy person?
Maximizers.
Maximizers are happy people or optimizers?
I consider myself as a maximizer because I research on everything. So, in that
Okay,
way, I would say
okay,
maximizers.
okay. Just because you feel that you are a maximizer. All right. Anyone else? Who's a more happier person?
Roji, optimizer, I would probably go with.
Okay. Why?
The reason being, he has tried to utilize the resources he had and bought whatever he was desiring for. And though it is not met 100% of his need, he still knows it's fine. I can still live with it. So he's not
Okay.
at a loss or having any second thought that I did a wrong decision.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Yes.
Prabhu optimizer again, as Jitish Prabhu said,
Okay.
and because he's utilizing the resources, he's optimally utilizing it. So it is kind of maximum, but there is less dissatisfaction there,
Hmm.
like because he's done his best and he's optimally utilizing. So I'll go with optimizer, Prabhu.
Okay. Anyone else?
So as you said, maximizers expectations and all are very high because they're trying to maximize. So yeah.
Okay. Yes. Anyone else?
For me, Prabhuji, might be a different answer, but I would say whether it is a optimizer or this opinion. So
Hmm.
what does it matter is end of the day like self-satisfaction. So each people has different opinion.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else? No. So with happiness, I don't think so. There should be any bar. They both should be happy because they're both doing their work, right? It's the remorse, it's the disposition which makes the difference. Now, in terms of objects, there is no problem. Okay. When we have phones, we have cars, we have houses, then it's not much of uh, a direct impact, unless you may not be happy for some time and you have some workarounds and this and that. So both may be. But when it comes to relationships, things change. When relationships are created, or you get into a relationship, then it's very hard for the maximizers to maintain a relationship, whereas the optimizers, because of the adjustment kind of an attitude, they might be able to continue with a relationship more. So with the objects, it may not have an impact, but with the relationships, it matters. Yeah. The expectations out from an object, they're a lot different from an expectation from a person. A frustration, you know, is higher when the expectation from a person are not fulfilled as compared to an object. So I'll just relate to today's situations. If you see in 100 years back, or 50 years back for that matter, there were no prominent pills for mental issues. There were no pills in the market at all. But now we have a lot of medicines for stress, for mental problems. And the main reason behind that, as per all the different views from psychologists, psychotherapists, or psychiatrists, is that the expectations have gone very high for the people from everything. And because of their expectation being very high, there's a lot of remorse. And that remorse brings a lot of distress. And relationships also in today's times, if you go back 50, 60 years ago in India, there was no word, it's around 70 years ago, there was no word called as divorce. There's nothing called as divorce. If anyone would, have a divorce, it will be a big news in India, but they have got very common. So what is the underlying issue is the frustration. The other one is fear. So the fear in today's times, the biggest fears, the top two fears as they have listed. The first fear is the fear of terrorists or these wars or things happening. The second fear is the fear of rejection. So because our society is so materially profound that everyone wants to look the best in terms of the outlook, so that he is liked by other people. So generally, all the relationships, all these kind of affairs, or marriages, or all sorts of relationships, they're based on outlook, and everybody wants to look his best. And the reason why, because there's a fear of rejection, and that brings a lot of frustration. So coming back to optimizers and maximizers, so where do you want to be? So you may not be able to put yourself as black and white and this and that, but we may have to find a balance on things, people, depending on what is the actual object which is being utilized. Is it a relationship, or is it a material object, or it's something which is a physical object to be used. So we have to have that intelligence to understand all this. Now when there is this remorse, whether you are an optimizer or you are a maximizer, doesn't matter. What is important is that, are you able to handle that remorse, that distress which is coming from an object or a relationship or a person? If you are able to manage that distress, if you are able to tolerate that distress, then you are eligible to move further in spirituality, which will be the next verse of Krishna. So this verse is explaining clearly that these happiness, that you expect something, you get it. Yes, good. You expect something, you don't get it. That's also good. Your feeling is important. Whether you are able to manage that internally, then you are eligible to move forward. Then you are a stable person, dheer, sober person. Coming back to this verse, what are the important points in this verse apart from happiness, distress, and tolerance? Can someone highlight any other important aspect?
Prabhu, we should not deviate from our prescribed duties.
Does it say that? What is the verse saying?
Yeah. Prabhu, the verse, no, the purport. Prabhu, I'm taking it from purport.
No, from the verse.
Or,
What is the
okay,
verse saying?
Prabhu, without being disturbed. I mean,
Without being disturbed. Okay. What without being disturbed?
basically, we should learn to tolerate
Mhm,
without getting disturbed. Means, like you say, Prabhu, lamentations and anxiousness. So
mhm,
basically, when sorrows or happiness comes in our life,
mhm.
we should try to be stable. We should not get overexcited, or we should not grieve too much. We should try to stay stable. So whatever state we are in, like
So
the
there
normal
is
state,
one term which is Sheet and Ushna. What is Sheet and Ushna? Yes, Kalpesh. Sorry, I missed that. Yes.
Oh,
You were
no,
saying
no. You
something.
guys continue, then I'll talk.
Okay. So the aspect which I was looking for is Sheet and Ushna. So what is Sheet and Ushna?
Shita means
the
winter.
weather.
Ushna means summer.
Hmm. Now, winter and summer, what are these? These are
Season.
again experiences, right?
Hmm.
Senses, sense objects outside, the weather hitting you with winter and summer. We, when we are working, if we have to work, can we take a leave because it's too cold? Can we take a leave if it's too hot? It's expected you will bear it and you will come and work. Yes? Yes, Kalpesh.
If you are a optimizer and if it's winter, then you will take and if you're a permanent, you will take a sick leave. If you are a maximizer and if you're a contractor, then you will not take a sick leave. But for 2.14, I have a little bit of a different explanation. Is that I was talking to a few people about this, not about 2.14, but one of my friend was a bit aggro on certain incident. So I told him, like, look, this is not the first time you have become so aggro, aggravated, kind of like angry. I tried to talk to him, like, like 15 years or 10 years ago, you might have been really very angry, and at that time you might have wanted to bash that person to death, even, or break his head or do whatever. Today, after 10-15 years, you don't care about that person. So basically, when you are angry at that time, or even if you're I'm just giving an angry one at the moment. So if you're angry at that time, but today doesn't matter. So basically, you were in illusion at that time, being angry, and today, because today doesn't bother you at all. Same thing. If you're happy with something, like 10 years ago, today you have even forgotten like why you were happy. So just stay still and be happy.
So Shita and Ushna, when we talk about winter and summer, we bear it. Yeah. So what are we tolerating? What are we tolerating?
Situation.
The, Prabhu, the differences like ups and downs, extreme, I'd say extreme differences, like when it comes
No,
into
no.
our life,
When it
right?
is winter and summer, what are we bearing? What are we
Experience.
tolerating?
Experience.
The extreme heat or the extreme cold, like that's the
What is that?
extremity
What is that
weathers, Prabhu.
experience? What is that experience?
Something we can't tolerate normally, like we have to be strong to deal with it. Basically, we have to push ourselves to,
So, so what are we
yeah, to
tolerating?
tolerate
Is
that.
the discomfort, the
Yeah,
unpleasantness, or the discomfort, or the stress, or
unpleasant.
the pain? Correct. So pain is what we are bearing. Correct.
Mm.
Correct. And we have also to bear the happiness. Correct.
But when it comes to happiness, we don't have to tolerate it, right? It's only when it comes to pain that we need to tolerate
That
that.
was my question. How do you tolerate happiness?
We absorb it, Prabhu, probably. Like you're very excited, but then you're like, no, 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 I'm fine. Like you absorb it. You try to stay
How?
normal.
What is that you have to tolerate?
The excitedness, the
Okay.
Anger.
All right. Okay. Happiness. I'll come to happiness. I'll go back to pain. So when you are in pain, say for example, your boss called you and he literally thrashed you with his words, very rude words, and he literally smashed you out in his cabin. Now you are out of his cabin. You are totally frustrated, unhappy, in pain. What would you do? Be very open and frank. Tell me, what would you do?
Just let that thoughts come through
Uh-huh.
and then just leave it.
Okay.
So
Good.
yeah.
Good. Good.
Prabhu, look for new job.
Okay. Good. Good.
Yeah, simple. You're in the mood, you just look for new job and just leave it.
Okay.
That's it.
Good. Okay. That is later. You will apply. That's fine. But what will you do that moment?
किसने सुना तो नहीं.
What was that, Kalpesh?
Um, Probably divert your mind engaging into good conversations or by meeting a person who can encourage you or listen to you,
Uh,
a good
doesn't
friend.
happen.
Call a
These
good
things don't
friend, or
happen.
you,
Trust me.
yeah.
When
Because
we
if
talk about
if
yeah.
sorry, if
Yeah,
we
yeah,
keep
please.
that thoughts coming flowing through our mind, that makes us more frustrated.
So how do you let
So
those thoughts go? What is the way out? Quick,
just
quick solution.
uh,
Divert,
divert
divert
attention
your
from
mind,
that.
Prabhu, to something else.
नहीं जाता है. जाता है इतनी डाइवर्ट हो जाता है?
Ignore कर दो. Ignore कर दो.
हाँ?
Ignore.
नहीं जाएगा.
Say all the good words for him
Yes.
outside the room.
You guys are too good. You're in a mode of goodness. सात्विक हो तुम लोग सब.
थोड़ा गाली देने का उसको.
या तो
मतलब
either there is the reality is not coming out, or either you're just trying to say something, to give an answer. Reality. See, one of my friend who I was recently talking to, he said, "दारू पिएगा मैं जाके सीधा, straight away. I'll go and drink with my friends whole night so I forget about it." Very practical answer. Yeah, we need shelter of something. Yes. Yeah. Either you go to your girlfriend, go and spend time with her so that you forget about it. See, let's be practical. What would you do to forget this? You want something to please you. You want some pleasure to get rid of the pain. बाकी सब philosophical है, बातें हैं सब. You are in need of a pleasure. I have people, who say that there are people who say that there is no problem which cannot dissolve at the bottom of a bottle of an alcohol. Every problem can be dissolved. Practically, yeah, people do that. Somebody goes and watches TV. Someone goes and does something. Someone goes and try to indulge in some illicit activities. They will do. Somebody takes drugs. Somebody drinks. Somebody smokes. You want pleasure. You want pleasure, instant pleasure, to really relieve your pain. Yes, experienced? Everyone experienced this? If you have not experienced, that means, oh, come on, man, we do experience this. You haven't received any harsh thing so far. Maybe I didn't give you any harsh example. Something more harsh which can happen. We are in dire need of a pleasure. Now, my question is actually coming up now. That was my real question. So, who is experiencing this pleasure or pain? That is my question.
Mind.
Soul,
Mind.
our soul,
Is mind a part of body?
Soul.
soul, Prabhu.
Okay, so one Kalpe is saying mind, Aradhana Mataji is saying soul. Who else is saying soul?
Me too. Vasant. Soul.
Vasant is saying soul. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Anyone else? Rishi or Jay or Sushma or Kshitij? Who's experiencing the pleasure or the pain?
Mind is.
Mind. Okay.
I would say soul.
Soul. Okay. Anyone else?
Since mind and soul are connected to each other, then both will experience the pain.
So mind and soul both will experience the pain. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Let's understand the nature of the soul, nature of the body. You know what is the nature? Okay, before we understand the nature, do you know what is nature?
Dharma.
Dharma. Like nature of the
What is
fire is
dharma?
to burn, Prabhu.
What is that?
Yeah, like
Ah,
nature of fire is to burn. Like
okay, so what is
the
nature?
scorpion's nature is to sting.
So
Like
what is
that is
that?
the nature.
वो क्या है वो?
Qualities.
Quality. Okay.
It's like
Quality.
sugar's nature is to make it sugary, right? Sweet.
Sweet.
So
Okay. So what is that?
that's the nature of the sugar.
So
So
what is that
the
nature?
beauty of the sugar
Okay.
Characteristic.
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 I'm looking for the real, one word. Perfect. Hit the bullseye. Come on. Someone?
Prakriti.
Prakriti. Okay.
Nature.
Everything in this world, everything, every person, every entity in this world has a purpose. So the purpose of sugar is to bring sweetness. Okay. The purpose of salt is to make salty. So nature is nothing but what the purpose of that object or person. So what is the purpose or the nature of soul? So without knowing the nature of the soul, how can we say the soul is happy or soul is feeling the pleasure or pain? We don't know what the soul does, right?
Soul has only one thing, right? It's to
What is
desire.
that?
To
Ah,
desire.
okay. But what is the nature of the soul? What is the purpose of the soul?
Soul is always in bliss.
Very nice. Very good, Kshitij. Perfect answer. The soul's
Sachidanand.
nature is
Yeah,
Chid Anand.
Satchidanand.
Soul is always in bliss,
Satchidanand.
always in Anand. Now, bliss or Anand is different than pleasure, huh? Bodily pleasure. Don't mix it up with the body. That pleasure or Anand are two different things. Pleasure of the body, the soul's bliss. So, Satchid Anand is the nature of the soul. It is always in bliss. हमेशा वैसा ही है वो और कोई उसका नेचर नहीं है. Like sugar is always sweet. और वो कुछ नहीं कर सकता. शुगर सॉल्टी नहीं हो सकता है. अगर सॉल्ट हो गया तो वो सॉल्ट है. So identification of anything is by its purpose. All right. Someone gives you a white substance and says this is sugar and it is not sweet. Will you identify it as sugar? No. Similarly, when a soul is to be identified, it is identified by its nature. The nature of the soul is to be in bliss, in ananda, always. Okay. So if the soul is to be in bliss always, in ananda always, how can it experience pain? Correct? It is always in ananda. Done. Soul हो गया. अभी दूसरा आंसर दो. Soul हट गया. It's not an option. Anyone else? Now, I mean, you want to try the second option? Who's feeling the pain and the pleasure?
The
Any
The
other?
mind is
what?
feeling,
Mind.
because mind's nature is to distinguish between what it feels good and what it doesn't feel good.
Okay, what is the nature of
What it
mind?
likes or dislikes.
Very nice.
Hmm.
So, sankalpa vikalpa iti manaha. The mind's nature or the mind's purpose is to accept or reject based on liking and disliking. करेला खाया, 10 दिन के बाद सामने करेला आएगा, नहीं खाना है, कड़वा है. This is mind. रजिस्टर किया, एक्सेप्ट एंड रिजेक्ट. रसगुल्ला खाया, एक हफ्ते के बाद रसगुल्ला है, खाना है, मस्त है, बहुत अच्छा है, टेस्टी है. दैट इज माइंड. एक्सेप्ट किया, रिजेक्ट किया. दैट इज द वर्क ऑफ माइंड. एंड माइंड इज नथिंग बट अ पार्ट ऑफ द बॉडी. एंड बॉडी इज डेड. वी ऑलरेडी डिस्कस दैट. यस, 2.11 2.12 में डिस्कस किया ना. बॉडी इज डेड बॉडी. अगर सोल निकल गया तो सोल तो ब्लिस में है और बॉडी डेड है. करेक्ट. Body dead, soul bliss. So who is feeling the pain and pleasure? My question again.
So, Prabhu, mind is still in the play or not?
Mind is the body. It is just a part of
Okay.
subtle body. संस्कृत में
So,
बोलते हैं उसको सूक्ष्म शरीर. So mind is subtle body, but it is again body. तो body तो body
yeah.
है and it is dead matter.
Hi.
उसमें से soul निकल गया, वो bliss में है, body dead matter है. So who is feeling the pain? So dead matter मतलब ये bottle भी dead matter है, ये phone भी dead matter है, टेबल भी डेड मैटर है. इसको टच करो, मारो, उसको फील नहीं होता है ना. इट डजंट फील पेन और प्लेजर, राइट?
Hmm.
करेक्ट. साइंटिफिकली
Yeah.
agreed.
Prabhu, is it intelligence, Prabhu?
Intelligence also part of subtle body, which is body.
False ego
Yes,
is
Rishi.
also part
It's
of
our
subtle body.
identification with the body.
Wonderful answer. Wonderful answer, Rishi.
I missed that last identification. What did you say, Rishi?
Identification with the body.
So what is
Our
that, Rishi? What
identification
is
that
that?
the material body gives us
So what is that? What is that aspect?
Attachment?
Consciousness.
No, 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 no,
No.
no, 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 no. Let's not get there. So
Prabhu, our
identifying
attachment with
yourself
the body,
as the
like
body means what?
yeah.
It's an imagination.
Prabhu, bodily consciousness, basically, right?
It's called imagination. Okay.
Mhm.
So
Illusion.
imagination is what? That I am this body. So the soul imagines that I am happy or I am painful when the body experiences something, because the soul is identifying itself as the body. ये imagination है. And that imagination to identify yourself as the body is called Maya. ये माया का definition ये है. To identify yourself as the body is called Maya. Ma, ya. Ya means something which is not. Maya. Something which is not. So you are not this body. That is Maya. When you identify yourself as this body, there will be pain and pleasure. The moment you identify yourself as the soul, you will be in bliss. Does it make sense? ये इतना सा काम है.
Yes, Prabhu.
Only this
Perfectly.
much work. But it takes lifetimes to get this sorted, to identify yourself as the soul. The first step towards that is tolerance. The only way you will be able to tolerate is that when you will understand that this pleasure and pain is just an illusion. It is not real.
Sir, मैं यही बोल रहा था ना पहले. I was saying same thing.
What were you saying?
I said, like, if you have experienced pain or pleasure, or some aggro condition like 10, 15 years ago, and if not, it doesn't make any sense in today's time, like in your current situation. So basically, you were under illusion at that time, feeling angry and happy, angry
But
or happy.
are you not an illusion now?
We are always in the illusion.
So we have to define, understand what is illusion, what is this Maya. If we do not understand where is the problem, you will not be able to have a workaround or a solution. So the problem is that when we identify ourselves, we imagine that we are this body, the pain starts, pleasure starts. We identify ourselves as the soul, bliss starts. I'll give you an example. Say, for example, a child is watching a horror movie, okay, and it's unbearable. It is really very bad movie in terms of horror scenes. The child is unable to bear it, but he is watching it somehow. He keeps on watching, keeps on watching. What will happen to the child? And he gets hooked onto it. He starts feeling fearful. He's scared. He's, you know, he's like really in pain. Nothing is real. Nothing's real. It's all movie. But what does he need? Now suddenly his mother comes and picks him up in her arms and hugs him. What happens then? He's relaxed. He's out of that. Yes, he's out of that imagination. He's out of that movie. And instantly he starts feeling better. What happened here? He was in the thoughts. He was imagining something. But that was affecting him. Yes, that was giving him pain. Correct? Now, when we are experiencing such pain from outside to inside, or we are feeling the pleasure from outside to inside, what we have to understand is that this is not real. And we have to turn to something which gives us pleasure or bliss. And that turning is called spirituality. And where we have to turn is called Paramatma or Krishna or whatever you have in your heart. But that is very difficult turn. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita in 18.61, Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati brahmayena sarva bhutani rantra rudhani mayaya. I'm situated in everyone's heart. So there is soul,